There once were two engines who ran a rail line together. They were two brothers who loved what they did. But over the years, their trains got longer and longer and longer until it was too much for them to pull. One of the little engines would find this out the hard way when he broke down trying to pull a train way too long for him. The railway, who already didn't look too good on money, had to put one of their locomotives in a siding for later repairs. The work, which was already too much for the little engine, had started to build up and become too much for the little engine to handle. One morning, the little engine didn't have to take any trucks, which he found rather strange because usually he would have to. Instead, he had to take his normal passenger. He was going to ask why when he soon found out. An oily, boxcar-looking object came into the yard. At least, it looked like a boxcar, but it sounded like a bear. It growled throughout the yard. Later that day, the little engine backed into the siding with his brother, and they would discuss the events of the day. They talked about how the weird boxy thing came in with their train cars, and they weren't sure what it was. Manager wouldn't come till next week. He was on holiday, so they couldn't ask him. An hour later, the oily, boxy thing came purring into the yard. The two locomotives asked the object questions. For example, what it was. It claimed that it was something known as a diesel locomotive, not powered by steam, but rather kind of powered like a car. But not quite. And how it had come to help with the work effort, and how it came to replace the broken little engine. This unnerved the two engines about the new locomotive, for he said no remorse when he made the claim, which it didn't sit right with the two little engines. He worked harder than he had to, and even at one point took an unregistered train full of tourists just so he could help the railroad commercially. One morning, the little engine pulled up to the station to wait for his passengers. He was waiting as usual when the diesel decided to purr into the yard. "I'm terribly sorry. I believe we've gotten off on the wrong foot. Well, I suppose we don't have any." I get why you might want to be silent. Look, when I first came here, I thought all steam engines were useless, but you've proven me wrong multiple times. I apologize deeply for my rudeness beforehand. Uh, my name's Dave. My cousin is a steam engine named Michael. How that works, I've no clue. Nice to meet you, Dave. I'm sorry. I apologize for my own behavior. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Suddenly, the guard's whistle blows, and the little engine was off as he darted away. I do hope they forgive me. Later that night, the two small engines were resting in the yards. You know, brother, he doesn't seem like that bad of a guy. I believe he was just misled. Which makes sense. Steam engine diesel relationships have never fondly been looked at as far as my drivers told me. His first words to us was that he was replacing me. I think he meant our work effort. He doesn't seem like that half bad of a guy. Just then, the diesel roared in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe I've got either of your names. Oh, sir, names are only for prestige steam engines. We're just common chunters running this small line. So you're trying to tell me you two don't have names? That's correct, sir. You don't have names. Well, I won't stand for it. Tell you what, how about we brainstorm for the night good name ideas? Once we come up with a few, you can select through whichever we've come up with. Well, I've always liked the idea of Jim. Then Jim it shall be! Unless you come up with something else. In which case, I'll keep my ears out. And, what do you think? You got any ideas? Yeah. Zachary. The next morning, the manager came to the yard. For the railroad.
All right, somebody tells me you engines are playing people and giving each other names. Now, what's this all about, and what are your names?
However,
so I can remember for next time.
Got a good ending. Dave would go on to work for a military base down in
if you guys want names, I'll respect them.
Known as Albrin.
Of course, I don't know what they are, so it'd be nice if I did.
By a foundation known as the Little Engine Society, who helps in preserving small steam locomotives.
And this is Zachary.
And already had 4 of their own.
Well then, Jim and Zachary.
They had
nice to have you on the railroad.
So they were moving operations to the
I must be off to go have my morning tea.
By extension, they picked up Zachary and his brother.
That was a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Jim, who was first moved to the island of Sodor and then repaired there, would later go on to start working for other small railways in the district, not just their small preservation society. However, he did most of the time work there. And as for the manager, he would later go on to work for a tugboat harbor to take the place of a Captain Starr. He would later go on to a happy retirement with his wife. Zachary and Jim would go on to work for the island for the rest of their lives. They loved the island that much. And unfortunately, that's where our story ends. But as they say, where one story ends, another begins.